welcome to the Onyx Network XCon 2025. We are here doing a virtual conference this year, and I want to remind everyone this will be recorded, so if you miss any part of it, you will be able to watch it later, and other people will be watching this later as well. And I'm going to turn this over to our program director at the X, Mr. Race Hobbs in Van Buren, Arkansas. Take it away, Race.
Thank you, Margie. Can you hear me okay? Everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Get ready to dive into conspiracies, cover-ups, disinformation, and so much more here, right here on XCon Virtual 2025, right here on Zoom. I'm so glad all of you could be here. We look forward to some time well spent here in the next 2 days. Covering conspiracies, cover up disinformation, and so much more. Margie, I want to thank you for the hard work you put together to put this on. I would really like to have these like every quarter. You know what I mean? Like every quarter, let's get together a group of people and bring together some themes and throw down and let people just come in and share and be a big part of this, because it is so much easier than having to book hotels and everything else. So, and the cost is so much more effective, and you get the same information that you do when you go to, but you know, the in-person experience, you just can't replace that. So, we're going to do our best to entertain you and inform you. And like I said, make this time well spent. Thank you, Margie, so much. Our first speaker, Sheryl Arbogast, has a presentation today on the medbed disinformation, smart meter dangers, which I'm super interested in, and more. Sheryl is as I look at the clock here, yes, Margie, we are behind. Sheryl is a detox and wellness coach who's self-healed from severe autoimmune disorders through the power of frequency healing and natural law. With 45 years of experience as a nurse in mainstream medicine, including ICU, telehealth, hospice, and inpatient psychiatric care, Sheryl has a unique perspective that bridges traditional healthcare and holistic wellness. She works with Tesla-based technology, which just sounds as cool as it probably is, bioenergetic devices, and promotes natural law to help others restore balance and vitality. Her approach integrates science, energy alignment, and detoxification strategies to support optimal health. Everybody welcome Sheryl Arbogast.
In the world, and I would like to.
Go ahead.
Hi. Is everything good for audio?
It is now, yes.
Very good. Well, thank you for the introduction, and you have the absolute most fantastic audience out there of people who are like-minded and really seeking the truth among a lot of disinformation, and we're anxiously awaiting technologies that will help us to heal, and we keep getting different stories about what's available and what's out there and when it's coming and who's going to have access and all sorts of things like that. And it's all in the conspiracy realm. But I'm here to tell you that we have technology available right now. And I'm sure that you know all about it, as you have been using it for a while yourself. Primarily, I'd like to discuss the Tesla Quantum Wellness Table. And here is a slideshow that I have put together that will give you a little background information about this. The med beds that are coming, there's a lot of information about them and different sources, and I'm not going to go into that because I haven't seen them. And I know there's kinds that will regenerate limbs and organs, and do memory wipes and rejuvenate you and turn back time, but we don't have access to that right now. What we do have is plasma type med beds, and they are amazing, and they are very real based on science that we should all pretty easily be able to understand, especially again with your audience who's smarter than the average bear and understands quantum physics and higher principles of that kind of science. So am I sharing my slides now? Can you see the wellness table up there on my
Yes, we can.
Very good. All right, so let's just run through these slides very quickly. The inventor is a beautiful man named Paul Esch, and he lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He started out by reverse engineering devices he got his hands on back in the 80s, and he was able to combine Tesla-based technologies with other inventors like Rife and Voll and Beck and Lakosky, and he is so out of the box. He was putting these different devices together in many different ways and creating things that all worked a little bit differently, but they all worked, and they're all based on scalar energy, which is basically capturing the ether. They've tried to hide what energy really is so that people couldn't understand how to use energy properly and to even understand the principles that Nikola Tesla was trying to explain. Back in 1907, Rockefeller changed the periodic table of elements and eliminated zero off of the periodic chart. That element at zero was known as the ether, and they tried to hide it so that no one could really understand what that energy is. But it's scalar energy is the plasma energy of the universe. It's electrical. It connects everything that is between Mother Earth and our entire universe. And so he captures that with these different devices. He uses color, light, sound, vibration, terahertz frequencies, and puts everything together in these wonderful ways. And about 3 years ago, he came up with a table that we initially called the Tesla table, and we like to call it the quantum wellness table. And it incorporates a Tesla coil and other components that I'll go through in a little bit. He's got a direct website that you can go to that was on that previous slide. My bio, he's already explained where I come from, but a little bit more about my background is that as an RN, I was doing home care at the time of COVID, and my boss threatened me because I wouldn't wear a mask, and I was going into people's homes as their nurse after they were discharged from the hospital. And she threatened to call the Nurse Association in Ohio, where I lived, and report me. And I said, for what? And she said, violating the Nurse Practice Act. And I said, open your book and show me what page that's on, because there's no law, or I'm not violating anything. And she said, I know, but I'm not going to lose my business because you won't wear a mask. And so that's what's going to happen. And so I was in a pickle. I couldn't continue doing my job unless I wore this mask, and I just couldn't make myself do it. My soul wouldn't let me do it. My soul had already checked out from delivering all these drugs and hospital care and taking shots and all of that. So I had to step down from my job. So in 2020, I ended a 45-year career very abruptly without a plan B. And it created a whole cascade of things that led me to the path that brought me to frequency healing. And I think that this was intended to happen because it has just showered me with incredible contacts of beautiful people who are making everything just fall in line in a beautiful way, that I can share this technology. And I think this is a critical time for the whole world to get on the same page and start moving away from signing your sovereignty over to an outside force, Western medicine, and to take control of your own health and use what's available all around us all the time to heal. And that captures the ether and these devices that I'm talking about. The comment about natural law, I do want to say I was up in Ohio working with some things that were talking about governmental overreach, but that's not really, when we say natural law here, we're talking more about the rules and principles of science and quantum physics. This illustration is the Tesla table set up. The components include a massage table. It has plasma lights on either end at the head and foot of the table, and those are neon and helium and argon in the picture. You can use any noble gas lights, and that generates a high voltage plasma energy field that captures scalar energy. There's a color light bar across the top for chromotherapy, and that's more for balancing and chakra alignment and just, you know, it's energy medicine that's been around since, you know, thousands and thousands of years, that color therapy has been known to be therapeutic and helpful. And beneath the massage table, you can't see it in this photo, is the Tesla coil. And what you're looking at is it's a fluorescent light bulb, and it's propped up on two bowls that are inverted so that it's up off of the surface of the table. But what you can see is that light bulb is completely lit, and it's just sitting there. It's not plugged into anything. And so the incredible energy in this plasma field is so powerful that it lights that bulb up without it being plugged into anything. And the, you know, when you put your body in that field, that electrical energy going from the plasma lights, one box into the other one, right straight through you, is going to put a lot of energy into your bodies and into your cells and do an energetic recharge at the cellular level. Your mitochondria are going to grab up that energy. So it's a very powerful field that it creates, but there's a lot more components to it. This is the actual Tesla coil that is underneath that massage table. And the Tesla coil has about 4,000 turns of a thin coated copper wire, and it has a heavy gauge copper that's woven around the center of it in a 12-pointed star. So in the unit that we have, the long tube is 48 inches, about a 4-foot Tesla coil is a secondary antenna, and then the 12-pointed star acts as the primary antenna that drives this whole device. And it's wired to all the other components, so it's solid state, and it creates a unique combination of energies. It's different than just having like a CD player with music in a room where you have flashy lights. You know, you have two separate components. This is all wired and integrated into a single device, and it creates an energy field in a torus shape that helps to integrate everything and cause a coherence of the energies. And the outcome of that is quite different than anything else on the market. Again, you see the light bulb lit up on the top of the Tesla coil just sitting there. So you can put it near that coil or in between the plasma lights, either one, and get that beautiful field. Yeah, and then this sits under the table as close to your body as we can get it. We go to the next, there we go. So the light boxes are now in plexiglass, and you can see that up close. And there is the inventor, Paul Esch, and he has his fluorescent bulb that is suspended above the woman lying on the table, but it's lighting up that bulb, and that energy is going into her body as they're speaking. The control module is a computer that they hand build one by one individually to run the entire quantum wellness table. And the newer models have a dual display on the right side. This one only has 528 hertz programmed in as a single channel, but the new units have dual channel programming, and the lights are all individually controllable, as you can see with those buttons that you can press and turn them on and off. There is an ability to, on the bottom left, it says audio input. You can use an external device, such as a laptop, computer, or your cell phone. And there are Rife frequency generating apps and internet websites that can be used and plugged in right there on that computer, and then incorporated into that energy field to create frequency sequences that you can use to target anything using Rife frequency. So this is a Rife frequency generator, but it also controls the other components. You will see on the top of it two squares that have lines on them. Those are, we call them an input and an output plate, and they are radionics that will pick up the frequency of something that you put in that field. So if you set, let's say, a crystal, just a quartz crystal on the input plate on the left side of that, it's going to read the frequency of that quartz crystal. And then on the right-hand side, you can put a glass of water or a carrier oil and infuse those frequencies over into the other side. The idea is to create homeopathics, and it's going to pick up the resonant frequency of whatever you have in there. So you can use frankincense, or you could put your vitamin supplements on that input plate, or you could simply write your intentions on a slip of paper and say, I am perfect health, and I am blessed with abundance, or any affirmation like that. And you put that on top of that plate on the left-hand side, and the frequency and the intention gets picked up with this resonant field. And those frequencies transfer into whatever is on the left-hand side, as well as incorporated into the greater field that goes through the Tesla coil and the toroidal field where your body is in that path. So it gets those frequencies into you, as well as you can create a homeopathic with that. And then you can take that water or essential oil and the one that you just created and move it over to the left side again, and put a fresh sample on the right side, and create duplicates of what you just made and mass produce your homeopathics. So there's a lot of different features that Paul Esch has thought of to incorporate into this very smart box. My partner, I'm partnership with Sound Living, and my partner likes to call this the brain, because it's so much more than just a computer. It runs everything, and it has so many abilities to create different wellness things through the programming that he's built into it. The little black knob on the top of this box is for the intensity of the noble gas lights that are at the head and foot of the massage table. And it's adjustable with that button up at the top. We usually operate that in the range of 8 to 9 while we're running it. And it creates quite a lot of voltage that is dialed up with that knob. The energy that it's putting out is about 100,000 volts per meter. So that's, enough to light up that light bulb, but it's going to make your mitochondria take notice, and they're going to grab up that electricity, and it's going to recharge your battery. So when we talk about how does energy healing work, we need to understand that we're electromagnetic beings, and in our individual cells, our mitochondria that create electrical energy, that if it gets too low, we will develop cancers and not have good health and make you susceptible to many illnesses. And so by recharging your battery and getting your electromagnetic balance restored, it creates that homeostasis that we need in order to go into a self-healing mode. So this is the distinction we need to say. This table doesn't heal anybody, and obviously it's not run through the FDA. There's no testing or promises of efficacy, but what it does is very solid science in the ability to make you go into your 0 point, your steady state, which is what homeostasis is. That's when everything in your body is working the way it's supposed to. Your cells are in communication with one another, as well as your hormone balance and your endocrine system, your immune system. All of the pieces, parts are talking together and getting clear signaling. And how does that signaling get interrupted? We talked about 5G, right? When you're in a 5G field, whether it's from cell towers or your phone or your smart TV or any of the myriad things that we have in our homes that put out 5G radiation, that energy level is in the gigahertz range. And, the most energy we can create with the Tesla quantum wellness table is around 350 hertz at any point. When you get up into the billions of hertz, or the 5G microwave range is around 60 gigahertz. It's more than our bodies can tolerate, and it knocks the signal off the channel. Basically, it's disruptive to your DNA, and it interferes with electromechanical signaling in between your cells. So how does this work on our bodies? Well, we're water, right? We're 80% water. And so when you put current to water and structure your water, what does that mean? It means that all of the solids within that water are going to go into some kind of an organized pattern. And with cymatics, you've seen it with the sand on the drum, or different ways that you can visualize the patterns that are created with different resonant sounds. And so when you structure the water in your body, the solids in your water are things like red blood cells and white blood cells, and it's lymphatic debris and stuff that needs to be removed from the body. So any water in your body will become structured, and this explains why this has healing properties. The blood, when all the cells are lined up, it can flow beautifully without getting traps, because everything's single file and it flies through the microcirculation, and it boosts your delivery of oxygen and nutrients to cells because there's no impedance there. Everything is orderly, crystalline, and your water is structured. And in that state, the water can cross cell membranes easily and get into the cells and provide better hydration to your cells. But, you know, it's also carrying the stuff that your cells need to work. And that's a nutrition source and the oxygen to run the functions within that cell, and the electrical potential, like in the mitochondria. And in the lymphatics, it does the same thing, only this is draining toxins away. And so this table is going to detoxify you. It's part and parcel. You can't separate it. So it will help remove poisons from your body because it's structuring the lymph in your body, and it's going to flow faster and remove those kinds of things that your body is trying to excrete and clear. When you use specific frequencies on the Rife component with intention, you can target different poisons that you want to remove. And you can also target different conditions and disease states by using the frequencies that you dial in there. And so while we can run, like on the illustration, 528 hertz, that is known for DNA repair and restoring you back to your original blueprint. It's also called the love frequency. And it's very healing. It's part of the solfeggios. And that is really just the musical scale. And music has healing properties. And so it's good for everyone who uses the table. There's no one that wouldn't benefit from using 528 hertz. But then when you use that programmable external drive in the audio input, you have unlimited number of frequencies, and it covers everything from spirit, mind, and body. It doesn't just fix the body and structure your water. It also affects the way you think. It affects the brainwave patterns that you have, and it raises your frequency overall so that you can spiritually have a better connection with source. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the next image. This is an example of a toroidal field, and it is, you know, kind of donut shaped. They can be different shapes, but there's always that 0 point in the center of it where the energy recirculates back down through like a black hole in the middle, and then comes back out and moves within the field. And the field we can see with that light bulb, it measures where the energy goes. And when you put your body in that field, so you're now inside of this torus. And then the other energies are delivered in what we call carrier waves. And you can use a Rife frequency to deliver another carrier wave of Rife frequencies that becomes tied up within this torus. So it becomes quantum entangled, or it creates a resonance by mixing all this together with plasma energy. Go ahead and scroll. There's another image that talks about the 369. My website is called thefrequency369.com. And we all know the famous quote from Nikola Tesla. It says, if you understand the magic of the 369, you'll hold the keys to the universe. And on my website, there's a video that will go into great detail to explain exactly what that is. It's mathematic equations, it's real physics, and it's not woo-woo, but it crosses into the woo-woo, but it really is magic how the numbers and energies interact. And here's, okay, we've been talking about this a little bit, what the table really actually does. We are created perfect, and we our bodies know what to do to heal us. And so we just need to create the conditions that allow that to happen. And that's what the homeostasis process is about, allowing your body to be in that healing state. We need a couple of things to create that. And that is, number one, you have to have your cells communicating properly. So there can't be interference of the electromagnetic field, because that's going to interfere with that steady state and the information being transferred from one body system to another so that you work correctly. So this is going to help bring you back to your 0 point and get you in homeostasis. And then your cells are going to talk to each other, and the body then knows what to do to seek out problems and go after them and fix it, whether that's creating new stem cells or bringing your hormones into a better balance, assisting with the ability to calm your mind and sleep. The other big thing here is the parasympathetic metabolism. You cannot heal unless you are in that calm state. The opposite of parasympathetic is fight or flight. It's the sympathetic nervous system. That's the one that has your amygdala screaming in your brain that you need to run for your life or turn and fight whatever it is that is the threat. And your bodies can't really tell whether it's, you had a fight with your spouse or there's a lion chasing you. It's the same stress response, the same hormones that come into play, whether it's, an argument or a life and death threat. Your body doesn't make the distinction. And so you need to switch off that fight or flight so that the parasympathetic metabolism kicks in. And in that state, it affects the way your brain is working. It makes your brain go into a theta pattern is really the goal. There are different states of brain waves. I think I have a slide coming up that will show that. But the theta state is 4 to 8 hertz. It is a brainwave pattern that children stay in up until about age 7. And in adults, we have that theta state typically experienced right as we're dropping off to sleep or in the morning right after we wake up. It is a wakeful state where you are conscious, but it is the slowest of the patterns. When you're up in alpha beta, your brain is churning and you're working and you're solving problems and you're doing things. But when you get into that meditative state, that calm, restful state, that's the theta state. And that's where your brain has to be for this self-healing to take place. And so it shuts off the fight or flight when you get into that theta pattern, and that allows the cortisol to drop off and allows different hormones to take over running your body. And that includes things like sending out cells to look for imbalances and send chemical signals to release different hormones to bring, all of the function of your immune system back into balance. And it happens automatically, but you just have to have the conditions there to create that and allow it to take place. Let's see. Again, we're talking about scalar energy, and we have the color, and we also now have music and vibrational components that allow your body to experience the scalar energy from the whole universe is picked up in an antenna and translated into a vibrational field that allows us to experience the grounding with our universe. And the component is called a star detector. It has an actual antenna inside of it, goes to a driver that converts that sound energy into the vibration, and through bass shakers mounted under the massage table, it vibrates your body at the frequency of the universe. The Tesla coil grounds you to Mother Earth in the Schumann resonance, but the universal frequency grounds you to the ether. And the energy, scalar energy, is faster than the speed of light. And in this way, the table is instant in how it brings these energies together. And if you wanted to use like a photograph of a person, you can place that on that table and you can send healing with frequencies that you're creating and controlling on your computer remotely through the ether because of this scalar ability. Some of the benefits would include stress relief and mood improvement, sharpening your focus, improving your energy, anti-aging, obviously improving circulation and metabolic function, and that helps quicker recovery from injury, reduce pain and inflammation. PEMF alone, that's generated by the Tesla coil, that will provide, it's an electron donor. So it helps to put back components that get bumped off the signal by 5G and other things that influence our electromagnetic field. That PEMF will correct that. There's tens of thousands of articles on PubMed that you can look up that will articulate how the healing using PEMF is going to help with any condition. You can just do a search for the terms and you'll find so many articles about that. It creates a coherence of the information that's coming into your cells through coordinating it with the scalar energy and the ability of your cells to communicate and your body to be in that parasympathetic resting state. This was at our next presenter after my talk is going to be Tyler Kiwala of I'm drawing a blank. We were in St. Louis when we took this photograph, and it was a beautiful experience where a lot of people got to try the Tesla table out for the first time. You can see the coil now under the table, and it helps reduce stress. Many people will fall asleep while they're on the table, sometimes almost instantly. Others will stay awake, but they get into that restful state almost instantly once they get in the field. And when you turn off the fight or flight and the cortisol goes away, the different hormones and systems that come into play, they're going on the offensive. They're looking for problems to solve. They're going to seek out cells that are mutated, and they're going to phagocytize those. And it's going to just work the way it was meant to be so our bodies can self-heal. So it just creates those conditions. So this is just an illustration of the brain waves being an electromagnetic feature, or a magnetoelectric feature, if you will. The magnetism is a huge part of it. And there's a QRST segment from an EKG rhythm on the right side. So we can actually see and measure the waveforms that our bodies produce with the electromagnetic field. And it still goes on even down to a cellular level with the sodium-potassium pump and the way that information is communicated between the cells. But on a broader scale, everyone's pretty familiar with EEGs and EKGs for measuring energy output in our brains and in our hearts. When we talk about healing, you can't just heal the body and expect everything to fall in line, because a lot of our illnesses have a mental or spiritual component, or it could even be from past lifetimes that set you up for healing that needs to continue from previous incarnations. We have to address the whole gamut. And when you get into a higher meditative state and allow your communication with spirit to link up, you can address those things from other lifetimes. There's a consciousness field that is being created in these scalar energy fields. There's a lot of research coming out by people like Bruce Lipton, and there's so many, but when you get on the Tesla table, you actually almost instantly can tap into that if you are an energy sensitive person. And this is something that you can develop and improve with practice. And for myself, I like to get on the table and put 963 hertz on the Rife programming, which is the God frequency. And it also will detoxify your pineal gland, and it helps you achieve a really high meditative state. And you can do it almost instantly as soon as you get in that field. It's a beautiful thing, and it's where you can stay calm and have that communication. And the way I think of it is like, when I do this, I can hear the answers to my prayers. It's one thing to take the time to stop and pray, which I feel is more powerful than any kind of medicine out there. But if you want to hear the answers and get those prayers answered, you have to have your spiritual connection intact. And when you have this consciousness field interplaying, it makes that happen. The belief of the person has a huge component of affecting that ability. So if you don't believe, you're probably not going to feel much when you're in this field. But for those who understand energy and intention and how our energy fields overlap and the symbiosis of expanding energy when we cross those fields, or the opposite can happen if you shut down and you want to block that energy that someone is sending, you can do that too. But when you get that coherence, and you really believe you understand the nature of your soul and your spirit, it's a powerful thing. And so using the table, you can combine it with the magic that each person brings to the field. If you are a Reiki master, it's going to help you to heighten your powers and your ability to send that energy out. And the placebo effect is very real. And if you disbelieve, then it's not going to have much impact on you. But if you do believe with your intention, you can astral travel on this table. You can connect with consciousnesses that are outside of the veil. And there are people who have these abilities, that your telepathy can be sharpened by using the table, and your intentions, they are huge in all of this. Here's just a nice visual that talks about frequency in terms of color, and the colors are tied to different organ systems. They're tied to emotional states, and their imbalance can have specific symptoms that will result when things aren't in proper alignment. So this is just a color scale that shows you. I'll go through, like, the red is a physical characteristic that is affected much with your gonads. It encourages courage and action. It's grounding and provides stability and it's a survival mode. It's the lowest chakra. When it's not in balance, you have possibly violence, greed, self-centeredness result. And the Hertz frequency for the color red is at 194.18 Hertz. And so these things are all measurable. And it's, again, not woo-woo. It does have a feng shui to it to have these colors in balance, but each of the colors represents different systems and emotions, and the way it impacts your body is going to be affected by all of that. And as you can see, as you go up to the blue and violet range, you get into the higher mental states and spiritual aspects of the healing. We can target these issues by targeting the color therapy and using frequencies to boost that as well. Okay, we talked a little bit about solfeggios before, where I explained it's like mostly the musical scale. It has a couple extra frequencies thrown in, but these are the 9 most commonly recognized frequencies of the solfeggios. 174 for pain relief and stress, 285 for healing organ and tissue, 396 to eliminate fear, 417 wiping out negativity, 528 is DNA repair, positive transformation. It's also called the love frequency. 639 is to bring love and compassion to you. 741 to detox cells and organs. 852 to awaken intuition and raise cellular energy levels. And then 963, also called the God frequency, connects you to your higher self, or to your definition of spirit, whatever that is. When we are putting people on the table, running them through the whole solfeggios are a good comprehensive healing modality for anyone that uses this equipment. But let's talk more about the 5G and what is happening. In really high frequency, like the 60 gigahertz range, that's coming off of your microwave, and they're targeting us with NexRad. They are pulsing cell tower frequencies. Our phones may be able to target the individuals using your DNA. They've exposed all of this. Military applications exist for creating whole populations to behave in a particular way or to hear certain things. Voice to skull technology is very real. Targeted individuals are out there, and we know this exists. And so how do we combat that? Well, let's get our electromagnetic field back in balance. That's what we need to do, because that's where they're targeting us, is by putting that out of balance. When it gets too far gone, it can lead to cancers to be developed. So there's a lot of research out there associating your cancer risk with 5G. And then the stress on the individual cells with 5G exposure, it's undeniable. There's disruption of the hormones, there is emotional responses, and oxidative stress is a huge one, where we prematurely age, and it can damage your genes, change your reproductive ability. It causes neurological disorders. And there's many people now experiencing electro hypersensitivity. And, maybe take a look at your environment, see if there are multiple smart meters that are on your building. Is your bed on the other side of the wall from that bank of smart meters? The shielding becomes critical, and everything that we can do to negate 5G radiation is going to help. And being on the Tesla table is going to help because it's going to put your energy back in those cells, because it gets very depleted when it's stressed with these 5G signals. There's just no doubt about it. And if you look at those effects that are listed on this slide, you can see these symptoms are, there's a lot of overlap with COVID symptoms. What a coincidence. So I think a lot of the stuff that happened with that, it's deliberately intended to interact with frequency. And so it makes sense that using frequency to remediate some of this stuff is a smart way to go. The oxygen molecules will flip over and vibrate at about 60,000 times per second in a 5G field. And when your oxygen's vibrating like that, it causes your blood to vibrate, and that will trigger your clotting cascade, and you can develop all kinds of problems with microcirculation because of clotting that gets started in that energy field there. The shots had graphene oxide, and they have the nanotechnology, the hydrogels that can self-assemble, and frequency can be used to instigate that. And so when you get on the quantum wellness table and you put your energy and electromagnetics back to their 0 point, you are directly negating those kinds of effects that have such a harmful impact on us. Dr. Judy Mikovits talks a lot about 5G, and she worked at the CDC and did cancer research back in the mid-'80s, and that was at the same time Fauci was there working on HIV and developing vaccines to deliver that retrovirus that causes our immune systems to shut down sequentially over time. She's working with a line of products that help to restore the electromagnetic field and correct the inflammation that is, the result of all of these toxic exposures. And it's not just 5G, it can be pharmaceuticals and chemicals that they put in our foods and the stuff that's coming up in our water. It's just an assault on all fronts, but all of these things can be benefited by getting your body's electromagnetic field restored. I've recently partnered with a company called Sound Living, and we use meditation and sound healing principles and devices, and we're pairing that up with the Tesla Quantum Wellness Table. We have a camera called the BioWell that we use that will show you your auric field in photography. It measures the light in your fingertips, and it's all connected to your meridian systems. And so by just simply photographing your fingertips with this specialized camera, it will give you these images of your body, mind body and spirit energy fields. And it will show you your chakra size and balance and alignment of your chakras. And then it also gives a nice robust report. I think it's over 20 pages, 26 pages, something like that, of the different organ systems and where you're in or out of balance on the left side or the right side. The left side being more introverted or feminine side, and the right side being more extroverted or masculine. It provides a lot of insight about where your stress is coming from and helps us to know where to target therapy. veterinarians, there's a vet that's using a Tesla table, and here you see this beautiful baby fawn up on the table, not struggling to get away, but relaxed and enjoying the connection to the energy fields that animals are so dialed into. They perceive frequency and they can tell if somebody is a threat because they feel the frequency of that situation or person to know if they need to run away or if they're safe. And this little baby deer feels very safe sitting up there on that Tesla table. I love this photograph. Here is my dog. This is Gurr, G-I-R, Gurr. He is an old boy. He's about 15 now. And every time this table is on, he wants to be in the field. He's overweight and had some health issues, but he's running up and down steps now and he's happy. And you can use this quantum wellness table for your whole family. You can open a business. You can help your pets to recover their electromagnetic field and energy and calm their minds and relieve stress. So it's good for all comers. I even put my house plants up on the table. You can put a 5-gallon jug of water in the middle of that table and structure your water. You can even sell that if you wanted to. There's so many different applications that you can do with frequency. Here's a device that Paul Esch calls this Vital Creations. You see his logo on the device. It's called a mini Tesla or the Tesla terahertz rejuvenator. It has 2 Tesla coils inside of it, and it uses terahertz frequency, which is a harmonic resonance of the blue range of color frequencies. And it provides the same kind of benefits that the Tesla table does, only in a miniature field. You can do the input and output plates with the radionics, and it uses scalar energy just the same as the table, just in a smaller field. That box you see is actually 6 inches wide by 6 inches tall by 10 inches wide. So it's about the size of an iPad and then maybe an 1.5 inches thick. But on the right side, there's that fluorescent bulb in a package laying down on the unit, and it's putting out so much energy that it's able to light the bulb in that field. So this, you would just put the device up against your skin to treat specific areas. We had a gentleman that had prostate cancer, and he started using that mini Tesla, and in 3 weeks' time, he was up out of his hospice bed. And I got a phone call saying, do I have to lie to my hospice nurse? Am I allowed to tell her that I feel better, or are they going to stop my benefits? And so we assured him, no, they wouldn't stop his benefits. It's a 6-month contract. It's based on time. But they were very curious as to why his condition had changed drastically, because he had gotten to the point where he wasn't eating and he had, lost a lot of weight, and he was moribund and looked like he had maybe a week or so before he would pass. And after 3 weeks from getting his mini Tesla rejuvenator, he was getting out of bed and eating and gaining weight. And so they brought him back in and retested him, and they found that he had no detectable cancer. So I don't know, he had previously undergone chemotherapy and stuff, but they had enrolled him in hospice, and it was a pretty miraculous thing to see him rebound in this way. So we can't say that the table did it or the little mini version of it did it. He put that Tesla rejuvenator right on his pelvis, though, and he used it almost day and night. But it seems like it made a difference. I hope that's what it was. Some other devices that I can help you get for your business or for personal use would be this vertical tower on the left that you see. It has the violet flame coming out the top. it's similar to another device that's on the market, and it's built onto a cabinet that you just set in your room, like a piece of furniture, ideally in the center of the room where you can all sit around it. Some people purchase 2 or even 3 of these units, and I can't remember the price point on them. It's somewhere in the $6,000 to $8,000 range, but it has the same programmable rife frequencies that work with it. And you can do a whole room by using this setup if you like. And it's a beautiful piece of art as well. It has the plate for the radionics on top of the computer for that Tesla tower that you see on the left as well. And then, the noble gas lights are in a circle all the way around it, and that's the plasma energy field that it's creating there. On the right-hand side is a lymph massager, is how that's marketed, but it is a true Tesla technology with coils inside of that handle, Tesla coils, and it has a noble gas bulb that we call it a curly bulb, and that has neon gas in it. And combined with the plasma energy that it generates with the Tesla coils in the handle, you can use this device to rub on your skin. It has to be direct contact with your skin, not through your clothing. But massage therapists who do lymph massage can really kick up their game and use this tool to improve detoxification and lymphatic massage. It also can just be used for general healing because it's adding oxygen directly through your skin. When you touch it to your skin, it creates ozone, and you can smell that, and that oxygen permeates your skin and gets straight into your body. So it's you can use it on your face, and it'll reduce lines and wrinkles. It's an amazing little tool. It has a lot of applications. I was appeared on Tressie Treck's show together with the inventor, Paul Esch, and that's a screenshot from that video. I have several videos that you can find linked on my website. Again, it's the frequency 369. And then the partnership with Sound Living is on Facebook and on Instagram. You can find us there. Rebels of Disclosure, again, this is Tyler and Aaron's baby, and we brought the table there and got a lot of exposure, and I'm very grateful for their support and these alien encounters. This is where I met Margie, was on this event that I'm specifically showing you here. And when Margie experienced the Tesla wellness table for the first time, she had, wow, I don't know what to call it. Margie, I'm going to let you talk about this later, but it was quite a unique experience. Some of the things that I have seen at these events is some people who got on the table and when I end their session, they go, wow, I just astral traveled to the backside of the moon. I had a woman who swore she spent 30 minutes conversing with Yeshua, and she was totally blissed out. I have people that say they're levitating, and people who have emotional releases, and they remember old traumas, and then they're tearful, but then they have this catharsis, and they feel like they've been able to heal from emotional traumas. I've had people who came to me and said that they're suffering from hypertension and diabetes and all these side effects. And so I select certain targeted frequencies with the right components. And then after their session ends in 20 minutes, one man stood up and he said, oh my gosh, I can feel my feet. I haven't felt anything from my knees down for 2 years. And this was after 20 minutes of being on the table. And this was, what I personally firsthand observed. So there's a lot of good testimonials about these experiences. And it's different for everybody. I can never predict who's going to have one of these incredible life-changing experiences, but we've had very many of them. This was the full disclosure movement. Thank you, Brian Singh. We presented the table both last year and this in July in St. Pete, and very successful and a lot of fun. The table's been presented at the Biomed Expo in Las Vegas. It's been presented at the Tesla Amazing Technology Convention out in Albuquerque. So it's getting a lot of notice. And again, with Judy Mikovits, I'd like to go back and revisit that. She is working to find products that will help people with cancers, because she's a molecular biologist, and she develops products that will help target those cancers. That was what her research was all about at the CDC. And she's come into awareness of what the Tesla table is and how it works, and we're partnering up. And she's using oral plant-based things that are not pharmaceuticals, but that can they have anti-cancer properties. She calls it oral IV, and together with getting your electromagnetic field restored, your brain calmed, and allowing your natural healing processes to work right, when you partner that with this plant-based nutrients and nootropics, it can really have a major impact on health. And that's what we're just beginning to explore now. And that's the end of that presentation. I have a couple of photos we might want to skim through. I have some help here. We'll find them. Maybe a testimonial or two would be good if we can find those.
You'll have to do a stop share.
Okay. And how are we doing on time?
We've got a few more minutes.
Okay. Here's a testimonial that happened very recently. See if we can hit play.
You have to do share sound before when you share your screen, or we can't hear it.
Backing up. It says screen sharing, but is share sound a component with that?
Do stop share.
Okay.
Okay, now share, and then a little box will come up, and you have to click on share sound.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
You're recording. Hi, Judy. Sheryl Arbogast here, and I have the Tesla Quantum Wellness table here at my house in Spring Hill, and Judy came over today because she had a little problem. So I'm going to let you explain what just happened. Well, I wrenched my back by bending down and emptying out a little swimming pool for my dog. So I wrenched the hell out of my back. I was in agony. I mean, I couldn't even wipe my ass or put on my shoes. I mean, couldn't get out of bed. It was, if you've done this, you know what it is.
How long was that? How long ago did that happen?
I just did that day before yesterday.
Okay.
And I've been putting up with it, and I thought, well, I'll go get an adjustment, from a company. And I hate adjustments. They're terrifying. And you still have, even though you get an adjustment, it doesn't always take away the whole thing. Anyway, I know Sheryl, I know you, and I thought, hey, let's hop on the bed and see what it can do. And I'd say it's, wow, 95% gone. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. I was on it for what, hour and a half?
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
I used the solfeggios.
Solfeggio,
I used a grouping of frequencies that it says it's for addiction, but it really has frequencies that are commonly listed for a theta brainwave pattern and for reducing inflammation.
Yeah.
And they're the same group of frequencies that do all of those three things. And so I had good experience with that, getting rid of pain in the past. Okay. I also ran a Rife grouping that was for specifically acute pain.
Okay. And I had acute pain. I mean, we're talking about screaming.
So I used three different groupings of frequencies for a total of an hour and a half. And all you did was lay on the table.
Yep.
That's all you had to do. And now your pain is about 95% gone, you said?
Yeah, it's almost all gone.
After like 2 days of suffering.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very good. All right. That's all I wanted to say. And the table works. I don't know why. It just does. Thank you so much, and continued healing to you.
I'm glad I know you.
God bless.
Thank you.
We're recording. Hi, Judy. Sheryl Arbogast here, and I have the Tesla
Click on stop share
here at my house in Spring Hill.
There you go.
It's still playing.
Did you have something else you wanted to show?
Yeah, there was a second testimonial, about 2 minutes in length. Go here and go back. Yes. It's still playing.
No, you'll have to click on share screen again and share sound if you're showing another one.
Minutes only on the table. As I was laying there, this started.
Sound, yes. Okay, we're good. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I think we got it.
Oh,
what just happened?
So after 15 minutes only on the table, as I was laying there, this started almost immediately. My body started to pull itself back into alignment. So my spine, my pelvis, my neck, all of my vertebrae I started to feel movement through them, and they started to shift. I have a little bit of a leg length discrepancy, so that's kind of thrown everything off over the years and caused a lot of problems as far as arthritis and chronic pain. As I was laying here, it was not me doing it. It was energies moving through my body to realign my spine. And also a lot of the fascia was kind of cracking and popping and opening throughout my body, which is very good for me for that to happen. So that was instant. That was within a minute of laying.
Did you intentionally generate that, or did it happen without your knowledge and just you allowed it?
I was not. I came in here with no preconceived notion of what to expect. I had an open mind and let's see what happens. And immediately that energy started to flow through my spinal cord, and it pulled the pelvis into alignment. It started to pull everything into alignment, and I could feel and see that perfect posture that it's trying to get me back into.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pan the camera to, here's the noble gas lights, 180 degree opposition, the Tesla coil underneath that drives this powerful energy and healing. And there is the computer, and we have a laptop connected to get a frequency grouping that's powerful for theta state and inflammation and emotional stuff too. And then the different Rife frequencies that are programmed through the computer modules sitting over there. So, Amy, this was beautiful. Thank you for your testimonial and continued healing to you on your journey. God bless.
Highly recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, hi.
That was very interesting, Sheryl. Thank you so much for sharing that.
There have been some pretty strange things that happened on that Tesla table when I've been at big conferences, and there was several people who came through and got on the table, and when they got done, they were really happy and relaxed and felt great. But what I observed was changes in their eyes, and I saw the pupils go into a vertical position for just a couple of blinks, and I was standing right over them. So I think that there are certain people among us who have a little different chemistry, but in that field, they seem to give in to that energy, and I think they can't really hold their shape or control it, but they were beautiful experiences, and they were lovely ladies that I observed that happening with. I've had actually another woman who her eye color changed, and she had hazel eyes that were very much in the amber gray brown area, and now her eyes are bright blue since she started getting on the Tesla table. And we can't really figure that out, but it's an interesting change, and she's loving it because her eyes are big and bright now, and they weren't before. And so I don't know what the Tesla table does and why it does it for certain people and not for others, but there's a lot to explore here, and I just know that it's healing for the future. People like Dr. Judy and Dr. Carrie Madej as well. She's been on it quite a few times. And, Michael Jaco and his wife Tracy have been on there. Laura Eisenhower have tried it. And you, Margie, you
Yes,
have
I
your own
did.
Tesla table. So what are you doing with
Yeah.
yours?
Well, we're using it every night, but we are out of time for today. And so with my talk tomorrow, I think I'm going to mention that. I'm going to mention what happened to me
Okay.
on the table. So thank you so much, Sheryl. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. I think we're ready now for our next speaker. One of my favorites, Tyler Kiwala. His talk today, Bleed Through, Tales from Another Timeline. Margie, I don't know how you put me on the screen or if I'm on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to
You
go ahead.
are.
Okay, good. Here we go. Tyler Kiwala is an ET experiencer, independent researcher, and passionate disclosure advocate. Most popularly known for the awakening community for the Journey to Truth podcast, hosted by himself and fellow disclosure activist Aaron Kahn. Together, they have created a platform for discussing any and all controversial and eye-opening topics without limitations in an effort to spread awareness to the masses. Everybody welcome our good friend, Tyler Kiwala.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for that amazing intro, Race. I appreciate that. And I'm happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for some time now, and this is my third XCon, so very excited to get into some of my testimony and my story that I haven't shared at the last two events. The last one was specifically kind of the history and origins of the secret space program, but not my involvement and how I came to the realization and understanding that all this stuff actually exists. And it's much more real than I once thought it was. I never thought I would be personally um, bumping shoulders with people from these programs. And I have experienced two recruitment attempts that have led me to question other events in my life, dating all the way back to early childhood. So I'll share my screen and I'll go through this presentation and basically give everyone here who's listening just a deep dive, an inside look into what my life has been like behind the scenes of Journey to Truth podcast and my awakening. And it's pretty interesting. And I just recently released a book called Bleed Through Tales from Another Timeline. So everything I'll share today will chronicle what's in this book. And some things that I forgot to add into the book, I'll be sharing with you today. So with that being said, I'll share my screen and we'll get started here. Okay, so here we go. I hope everyone can see that. If
Yes.
you can't, okay, cool. Let me find my cursor here. There it is. All right. So, after all this stuff happened to me, which I'll get into, but I want to rewind all the way back to fifth grade. Fifth grade, we had the Air Force come into our classroom, dressed pretty much like the way you see in this picture. This is an AI generated image. AI can do some amazing things when you prompt it correctly. They came into the room and they wanted everybody to invent a spaceship. They said sometimes young minds have the best ideas. So they gave us a pencil and paper and they wanted us to draw what our version of a spacecraft would look like if we invented one. And pretty much the class, I guess through programming, they all drew rockets or some form of a rocket. And I remember drawing a triangle, a triangular craft, and I didn't know why. And I looked around and saw the rest of the kids that were drawing rockets, and I almost thought like I had the wrong answer. That's the way it felt to me. I almost like erased it and changed mine, but it was too late, and I turned it in. They collected it and said thank you, and then walked out. And that remained a core memory of mine my entire life because when you're young and people like that walk into the classroom in uniform, it's very enamoring. I was enamored by their presence. Who are these men? So it was almost like you would do anything they said. And it was very intimidating, but also very special day. And I just wrote that off as being no big deal until years later when I learned about the secret space program and stuff like that, that maybe my best guess is that some of these kids, a lot of kids are brought into the programs at a young age with unbeknownst to them and their parents. And that's done through technologies that I'll get into here in a minute. But I think what they were doing was seeing who remembered, who had memory of the programs or not. And I don't think they were I don't think they wanted us to invent a craft. I just wanted to think, I think they wanted to see what we remembered, for lack of a better term. So that's what I think that was about. And I just thought that was an interesting tidbit of information to kick this off because that was in fifth grade. And there were things as a child, I had kind of like an unfounded fear of extraterrestrials, like aliens coming through my bedroom wall, not through the window, but through the wall. Like it was a weird fear that I had. I was scared to sleep next to the wall. Um, again, that was probably a subconscious thing. So on March 5th, 2011, my mother passed away. And that was a life-changing event for me. Prior to that, I was just kind of a young punk and I thought I had life figured out, and little did I know I didn't know anything. I thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything. But this was a catalyst for me that kickstarted an entire awakening process. It took me years to finally wake up to the bigger picture. But what started was um, levitation, years of sleep paralysis. The very first thing that happened after my mother passed away was I was levitated out of my bed, and I was getting closer and closer to the ceiling until I was like, "Oh shit, I better try and get back into bed." So I was able to actually manage my body and spin myself around and doggy paddle back down into bed. It was working. It reminded me of the scene from Willy Wonka. If you ever seen that, where they're floating up through that room and they started burping and lowering themselves. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Like I was like trying to swim back down. Once I got close to the bed, something basically took control of my body. And if you look at this picture on the right, that's what it felt like. It was just like I was squeezed together by some dark entity and smashed down into bed. And it was the first time I had experienced sleep paralysis, even though I wasn't even asleep whenever I was levitated. But that's just what people have come to call it. It's much more than sleep paralysis. In my case, it was entities sitting on top of me, draining my life force. And I didn't know what that was at the time. I had never heard of it, never experienced it. So I literally thought something was just trying to kill me. I couldn't see the entity, but I could feel it. And I ended up finding the power within, the will within. I started giving myself a pep talk, and uh, I was just like in my head, like, come on, Tyler, you can do this. Like, get out of this. Come on, you can do this. Just move your body, whatever. And just giving myself this pep talk. And it was getting so scary that I panicked and adrenaline kicked in, and I just found a way to break free. And I jumped up out of bed and ran down the hall. And what the hell was that? And that was the beginning of many years of similar experiences, and a whole journey through the astral realm where I understood, where I was allowed to perceive and understand what these beings were through lucid dreaming, which was a whole other thing that I accidentally stumbled upon. But essentially, looking back on it now, what I found myself in the middle of was dream warfare. And that's something that the CIA has even declassified documents about. In 2017, they declassified 90,000 documents, and one of them was specifically on dream warfare. Another one was on dream walking, a psionic ability that allows a person to essentially astral project into the astral realm and penetrate your dream bubble and harass you in your dream. It's literally in the CIA's files. They have walking through walls, patterns, documents that literally teach you how to change the frequency of your body to pass through a solid object. Everything that's supposed to be impossible or conspiracy theory, now we have documents that were just silently leaked online. Really, not many people knew about them, but they're all there. You can go to the CIA's website and find this stuff. So I found myself basically in a fight for my life every night, and I covered a lot of this stuff in the very first XCon presentation, so I won't get into all the details. But nevertheless, it led me through that darkness is how I found the light, and I figured out a way to overcome this stuff. And I started developing tools that were just helping. I was forced to believe in things that I once laughed at, and I found a way out of it. And I had to let go of the fear, because it's through fear how they control you. So once I realized that I held all the power, I kind of gained control of that situation. But looking back on it, I think it was training for He's something, that I maybe still have yet to encounter, but I definitely think that I gained a lot of wisdom through that experience. Wisdom, it can't be taught. You can only help somebody from your level of awareness. So through that difficult time, I was able to walk away with a lot of knowledge and insights on what is actually happening and how real the spiritual war is, the lengths they'll go to, and the depth of it. And I was facing it head on, and I'm grateful for that because now I understand, and now I can help other people get through that. So fast forward through a whole lot of stuff that I skipped because we're going to get into some of this juicy stuff today. Um, I had a Mars recruitment attempt in 2017, something I didn't even, at the time, I didn't think it was a real recruitment attempt. I wouldn't even have called it that. It was a coworker that kind of went crazy that was basically inviting me to go to Mars with him. And everyone thought it was nuts. But there's a story behind it that makes it not so crazy. And it goes like this. So in 2017, my Larry was his name. He was a coworker. We lived close to each other. We used to carpool to work together. So we were friends. We were coworkers, and we always laughed and pranked each other. We talked about sports. As far as I was concerned, he was a normal guy, nothing out of the ordinary. And we weren't always on the same job site because we were in construction. So he was on a separate job site one day. And I heard through the grapevine that he was escorted off the job by black government vehicles. Like these black SUVs basically came and handcuffed him, and they took him off the job. It wasn't a typical like police car, right? So it wasn't standard law enforcement. It was something beyond that. And they escorted him off the job, and it was anyone's guess to what he actually did or where he went, and it was all speculation. Everyone just thought he had done something really bad and was running from the law, and they finally caught up to him. And he kind of went dark. He wasn't answering his phone. He was not on social media for about a month. And then when he did come back, he popped up on social media randomly. He started posting about all this crazy conspiracy stuff that literally made him look crazy, especially to the blue collar construction workers who really didn't believe in this stuff. And he was talking about the deep state, weather manipulation, clones. He said that Princess Diana was still alive and living underground somewhere, and they acted out the tragedy with a clone. He started getting into all kinds of stuff, including even being invited to go to Mars. And everyone just thought he lost his mind, and including myself. I was like, man, what happened to Larry? But I didn't write him off like everyone else did because that was that I knew him. He was a friend of mine, and I actually kind of didn't. I felt bad when I heard people at work like making fun of him and stuff. And I was more curious to know what happened to him, but I also part of me was afraid to like push that button because I didn't want to. I don't know, in something deep within me, just didn't want to go there. So I just let it go. And he continued to post weird things online, and eventually well, here's what happened. So I woke up one day and I had a random thought to take my dog to the park to walk her. I had always only walked her around the neighborhood. And I woke up and there was a video about getting in nature. So I went to Jefferson Barracks Park, which is an abandoned military base. It's not abandoned anymore, but at the time it wasn't in use. And they have a trail there. They have this figure 8 trail. It's a 3-mile trail that I like to walk, but I had never taken my dog there. So I go and park in one of 4 parking lots that I could have chose from. And I pull in the lot and I look over, and 2 spaces over is Larry sitting in his truck. I haven't seen him or heard from him since he was escorted off the job site. And I look over and I said, Larry? And he looked at me straight in the eyes and he goes, you showed up. And I said, what do you mean I showed up? He said, you don't think you're here by accident, do you? And I said, what are you talking about? Like, what happened to you at work? Why did you get, taken from the job site and all that stuff? And we stepped out of our cars, and he's like, well, I got to be careful what I say because they're following me right now. I said, who? And he pointed to a tree, and he's like, well, that guy for one. And it was a guy that was stretching by this random tree, and it looked like he had an earpiece in. And as soon as Larry told me that he was listening to us through an earpiece, like he literally like adjusted this earpiece. And that's what it looked like anyway. And I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, well, it doesn't matter. He's like, he's just a scare tactic. They can listen to us from the satellites anyway. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, they have sophisticated satellites. They can hear our conversation from space or low Earth orbit, basically. I was like, really? I was like, what happened to you? Anyway, he pulled out a newspaper article and he had threatened to basically kill some politicians at the time, and I'll leave names out of this because I don't know where this is going to be. I don't want to get this video censored, but some very damning things he had said and threats he had made to certain politicians. But uh, what I didn't understand was we always wish evil upon politicians and that type of thing in a joking fashion, right? And but no one's coming in and escorting us in black government vehicles. So I was wondering, okay, what type of threat was it and why did they take it seriously? He never did really answer me about that, but he started telling me about all this crazy things, and I have it all listed here in the slide: parallel timelines, weather manipulation, underground cities, secret societies, the deep state, bad actors, clones, Mars colony, fake alien invasion, government time travel programs. And it was just a really information overload. And he didn't tell me all of this at once. It was kind of over a few months period of time where he was like basically giving me like these briefings on things that were being told to him. And I was like, how do you know all this stuff? And why have you never said anything about it before? He's like, I don't know. They're just telling me in my head. They're just telling me in my head. And I said, who's telling you in your head? I don't know. There's just a voice there. And I didn't know about voice of God or voice of skull technology back then. So I just had to kind of put him in that crazy category. I'm like, oh, okay, he's hearing voices. But I heard him out because he was sharing very fascinating things with me. And I I was willing to listen to him, but I didn't know if I believed him. And, one of the first things he told me about was the underground cities because we were right there in Jefferson Barracks. And he's like, yeah, over beneath Buzzum Quarry, there's an entire underground city, like a thriving city that celebrities frequent. A lot of people go there. It's like a hiding place for the secret societies and stuff. And I'm just supposed to take his word for it. But then he tells me that he was basically approached about joining a Mars program. Whoever was talking to him told him that in Labor Day of 2017, there was going to be a catastrophic event on Earth that was going to wipe out most of the population, and select individuals were being chosen to go repopulate Mars and preserve the human race on the planet Mars. And I found out later, this is a common thing that they tell people that when they do recruit people into this Mars program, which I found out is a real thing later. But he was telling me about how he was recruited to go. And I kind of thought it was nuts. Anyway, we talked for a while that day, and then we parted ways. And all I could think about was everything he told me. And I went back home, and basically there was the weekend. So Sunday went by. On Monday, I came home from work, and he was at my house, parked in my driveway. And I was like, oh crap, here we go again. And that day, he specifically started telling me about, I remember parallel timelines and weather manipulation. He told me that there's the HARP facility and there's other technologies where they can generate storms, manipulate them, steer them, the intensity. And he said there's even people in the secret societies that can do it with their emotions and their own unlocked human abilities. And he was like, you can control the intensity of a storm through your anger or whatever it is, and you can affect the electronics around you and all this stuff. And then he told me about parallel timelines. And he said there's always, well, he only told me about two timelines that he was made aware of, but he said that there's a timeline A and a timeline B, and they never know which one is actually going to be the lead timeline, meaning they don't know because things are always changing and time is malleable. And there's a lot of corporations and black budget, black groups, private in the side. I can't, excuse me. There's a lot of corporations within the private sector that have black budget programs in existence that are using time travel technology, and they're manipulating the timelines, which result in the Mandela effects that we see. And he was basically telling me that on the other, you can tell what's happening on the other timeline by looking at a video game. And he referenced NHL 2017, the hockey game. And he said, you know how they always had, we were sports fans. That's why he used that reference. He said, you know how the video games, they always have two covers. You can vote on one or the other. And I said, yeah. He said, that's because they don't know which timeline is going to be solidified. They don't know what the dominant timeline is yet. So one team on this timeline wins the Stanley Cup, but on the other timeline, the other team, the other guy on that cover won the Stanley Cup in that timeline. And he said they act like they're letting people vote on it, but in reality, it's just because they don't know which timeline's been solidified yet because things are changing. So then when that cover does come out, obviously it's the timeline that we're on. And he said that was just one way you can kind of get a glimpse into what's happening on these other timelines. And it was just blowing my mind. And then he started asking me if I wanted to go to Mars with him. And he wouldn't say who he basically claimed to have a handler at this point. And he told me that he was told to ask me if I wanted to go to Mars with him. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I have to rewind because I forgot to say that when he was at my house that first day, um, I didn't want to let him inside something. I just didn't want to let him in my house because the whole situation was weird. So we went straight around to the deck in my backyard. But you could still, it goes around the side of my house too, and you could still see the street. And this government vehicle, this black SUV was driving through my neighborhood. And to that day, up until that day, my dog had never barked at a car ever driving by. And she started going crazy howling at this car that drove through my neighborhood at least 3 times that I know of. And it was driving very slow in front of the house. And he was like, yeah, because that's just them again, follow me. And I mean, at the very least, it was apparent that he was being monitored and followed. And I'm sure they were listening to everything that we said. And he he said that he was given permission to even speak to me because he had actually they had taken his kids away from him and his wife had a restraining order. He was kicked out of his own house and he was living willingly homeless in his truck and he was sleeping in the park, I guess. And so he was, he said that they wouldn't let anyone. They ripped everyone out of his life, and every time he got close to somebody new, they would basically pull him away and like they were trying to isolate him. And he said that I was the only person that they would let him get close to. And he's very just verbatim just told me like they want me to ask you to join this program. And that's when he started telling me about this. The government has a time travel program that, from his awareness, was in existence as of the 90s. And they use basically a type of a jump room technology to get to Mars and other planets. It's not via spaceship, in the traditional sense. He's like, it doesn't even work that way. That's all like a rocket ruse. That's not how we've ever gotten to space, even during the Apollo missions. He said that was done through a covert reverse engineered technology, and no one's ever been to the moon or into space on an actual rocket, according to him. And they use other ways to get through the atmosphere, which is basically opening a portal and going through a cosmic web, which is a natural wormhole system. And he was explaining all this stuff to me, and it was a long summer of him constantly asking me if I wanted to go to Mars, and he got more and more details, and the entire story is detailed in my book, but there's a lot more to get through. So I'm gonna fast forward through this part of the story. But one thing I will add before we move on was that he did tell me about, and this is in 2017, he told me about a fake alien invasion they had planned, and not many people were talking about that online yet. And he told me that they had a blue beam holographic technology that they were planning on creating a fake alien invasion through holographic UFOs that were going to invade and basically destroy certain cities. But he said they weren't actually going to be real. It was going to be like tangible holograms that he said you can touch them, you can see them, they look as real as a normal aircraft, but they wouldn't be real. And he said he said a lot of our infrastructure was pre-rigged with explosives, especially the major cities and escape routes and bridges were pre-rigged with explosives that when they fired these holographic lasers at them, they would just detonate the explosives with a remote, and it would look like the laser is blowing up this building whenever really it was literally engineered with explosives in the building, kind of like 9/11. And uh, it was insane stuff. And he basically, for an entire summer, was trying to get me to go to Mars with him, to the point where he, uh, the very last day that I ever saw him, I came home from work and my dog was out in the backyard, and I thought that was strange. And I'm like, well, that's weird because my dog, like, the only way she could have gotten out is someone let her out. And I went inside and Larry was sleeping on my couch. Like, I'm like, what the F, you know? And I'm like, Larry, what are you doing on my couch? And I was like, where's your truck? Why are you here? Like, what the heck? How'd you get in? He's like, well, the back door was unlocked, which was probably true. Always forgot to lock my back door. But I was like, why are you here? Where's your truck? He's like, well, he's like, they were really after me today. So I came here to hide. I'm like, well, they know you come here. Like, this is the worst hiding spot ever. And he's like, by the way, I took a shower and all this stuff. Like, he had just made himself at home while I was at work. And I was like, why are you here? He's like, well, we leave tomorrow. If you want to go, like, he explained to me like what I could pack, what I could bring in a bag. You can bring this, just essentials and pictures of your family and stuff like that. And I was like, Larry, I'm not going to Mars with you, and you're not going to Mars either. Like, this is insane. He's like, well, will you take me back to my truck? And it was parked at Best Buy. So I drove him to Best Buy. He got out of my Jeep and into his truck, and he rolled the window down and he said, see you on the other side. And I said, all right, see you later. And that Larry went missing for 7 years after that. I never heard from him again. Actually, I thought he might have been dead in jail. I didn't know, did he actually go to Mars? He went missing for 7 years until the end of 2024. He popped back up on Facebook and sent me a friend request, which I did not accept because I did. I'm skipping a lot of the part where I was targeted during this time, and some not great things happened as well, you know, including like coming in close to some people within these secret societies and stuff, and whatever. It's a whole long story. I didn't want to relive that, so I didn't accept his invitation and his friend request. And as far as I know, he's back, but I don't know what he's doing or where he went. And I might accept that friend request and figure that out. But moving on. Yeah, so right after that, I started going through my awakening. I discovered the secret space program was a real thing. I'd never heard of it while I was talking to Larry. It was foreign to me. And another thing he told me was a lot of the stars in the sky aren't stars, and a lot of what we think are satellites aren't satellites. He's like, they're craft. Some of them are just parked there, you know, and you can tell. And he gave me this special laser pointer to tell and all this stuff. But I learned about the secret space program. It blew my mind. It resonated so deeply at a core level. I was like, oh my God, this stuff is real. And then I found Laura Eisenhower's testimony, which she'll be speaking tomorrow, about her Mars recruitment attempt. And I'm like, wait, this happens to other people? Like, surely, like that can't have been a real attempt to bring me to Mars. You know, it just sounded insane. And I listened to Laura's testimony, and it forced me to revisit that whole time in my life with Larry and consider that, like, he might not have been lying about anything. And he might have actually been telling the truth, and there might have been a real Mars program. Maybe they were lying to him about why they wanted him to go there. Nevertheless, there's a lot there to look at, and I think there is something to it. So I became obsessed with the secret space program. I was watching testimonies, reading books, I was learning everything I could about it, and my mind was being blown. And there was a local Coasties meetup. They called it Coasties, Coast to Coast AM. They had a local meetup once a month. People who listened to that show, basically, like-minded people would get together at a bowling alley, and every month they had a different presenter, and we could volunteer to present. And I had never given a presentation in my life, and I was like, well, I can talk about the secret space program, and nobody knew. Not one person in the room had ever heard of it. And she's like, okay, the stage is yours. And we picked a date, and it was like months ahead because it was already booked up. So I had been working on this presentation for months. and put together this whole thing about the secret space program back in 2018, before I didn't even know really anything about it besides what I was, some surface level stuff. And the day of the presentation, I was driving home from work. It was a Monday night, and I got violently ill on the drive home. I felt like my body was cooking from the inside out. Um, I didn't know if I was even gonna make it home. I thought I was gonna have to pull over, but I was like, no, I gotta at least get home. And I barely made it home. And when I mean I crawled through my front door, I literally mean I opened the front door and just hit the ground and curled up in a fetal position. And I felt like I was just being cooked from the inside out. From my research at that point, I knew about direct energy weapons, and I knew the symptoms and what they can cause. And I thought, holy shit, I'm getting blasted with a weapon right now. They don't want me to do this talk. And it quite literally crippled me. And I didn't even know. I was ready to pick up the phone and cancel because I just couldn't. I had gotten so sick in a matter of minutes. And I was something with him. He was like, no, don't let him win. Don't let him win. Just get up, find a way, go give the presentation and be done with it. So I was like, how am I going to do this? So I made a hot toddy. If anybody knows what those are, you drink them. It's like with whiskey and cayenne pepper and all this stuff, or wild honey, I think is what or wild turkey, American honey or whatever. That's what I used. And then I had some little airplane bottles of some of those shots, and I just kind of gave myself a buzz, actually. I thought that's the only thing I could think of that would actually help me get through it. And my eyes, something happened to my contacts where I couldn't even see out of my contacts whenever that thing hit me. And I like had to throw them away, and I had to put my glasses on, which I never wore. And I basically, I somehow limped my way up to the bowling alley, and there was like 40 something people there to watch me. But usually we had 10 to 12 people, maybe. And Ginger, the girl who ran the program, she was like, "Looks like you have a pretty big following." And I'm like, "No, I don't. Like, I know I didn't even do the podcast. It wasn't even a thing yet." And it was a mystery where all these people came from. And we had to bring extra chairs into the room. It was packed. And I was literally, I felt like shit. I was barely walking. Every step was forced. Right before I started, I went into the bathroom. I took one more shot of the American honey. And I went out there and I gave this presentation, got a standing ovation, and I drove home, barely made it back home, and I blacked out on the couch. And I missed the next entire week of work because I couldn't move. I was so deathly ill. And I knew something was going on back then. I was like, okay, they don't want me talking about this whole thing with Larry. Why were they targeting me anyway? I now believe that they have timeline viewing technology or time travel technology where they can see if you'll become a threat to their agenda, their timeline, their agenda and their narrative in the future, and they can maybe go back in time and target you before you become a threat to try and like bring you into a program or get you to do something that would steer you away from that path of enlightenment. And I truly believe something like that happened. So it was right after this, where I started Journey to the Truth podcast. I met Aaron at a conference, a disclosure conference in Colorado, Loveland, Colorado. And right after that, a couple months after that, we started Journey to the Truth podcast, which was a conversation with my dad as episode one. It was a phone call that we recorded and uploaded. And that started taking off, actually. A lot of people were listening to our surprise, and a lot of our friends that we had met were agreeing to come on the show. And it was kind of great. Never did I think that I was gonna ever host a podcast. Aaron, he asked me, he's like, what do you think about starting a podcast? And I was like, sure. I mean, no one's gonna listen anyway, but we can have fun talking. And little did I know it would turn into so much more. Now we do conferences and documentaries, webinars, and we've written a book, and we have a new secret space program documentary coming out, which is going to be big, which I'll talk about at the end. And after that, what put us on the map in 2021, we did what we called Secret Space Program Disclosure Month. And it was a month long, if actually more than a month, of us interviewing the whistleblowers. And one of them was Tony Rodriguez, who is going to be featured in our documentary. And this kind of put us on the map. We started gaining a bunch of followers, and it was kind of blowing my mind along with the audience because I was learning about all these programs and these things that were just not supposed to exist. So it became such a hot topic, such a trend that um, people were suggesting that we should host a conference because this was kind of during COVID and all the conferences had stopped. No one was doing conferences anymore. So I said, let's do a secret space program conference. Like people love to eat this stuff up, and we have the connections, so let's do it. Found Pierre Marquette Lodge in Grafton, Illinois, and we held the Secret Space Conference where we had whistleblowers and experiencers and even QHHT practitioners that were actually working with these guys to recover their memories. And it was this whole thing, and we caught a lot of attention. A film crew from the Netherlands reached out to us, and they literally flew from the Netherlands and filmed a documentary from our entire first event. We sold out. The room only holds 200 people. We sold out first time event. Can't believe everyone just showed up, and it was largely successful. And we've done 3 other ones since then, and we have a 5th one coming up in Hawaii, which I'll tell you about later. But this one in particular caught some attention. I mean, looking back on it now, like why would a film crew come out? And they literally made a documentary, a 1 hour long documentary about the secret space program that featured our conference. And they interviewed people, including myself, while they were at the conference. And it's on our Patreon. If anybody wants to watch it, Journey to Tooth Patreon, you can watch that documentary. It's pretty. They actually did a really good job, and it's not a hit piece to our surprise. So right after, well, while we were planning the conference, actually, we interviewed John Warner the fourth. Some of you guys may know who Chris Mellon is in ufology and Congress. Well, this is his cousin, John Warner the fourth. He's the black sheep of the family. His father was Secretary of the Navy, John Warner the third, from 1972 to 71, and he was a senator after that. And we've interviewed him a few times, and his father is very much in the know about the secret space program. And one thing he always told John, even as a kid, was he always wanted to know what the big secret of Antarctica was. And the only thing his dad would tell him was space operations. So he knew that they were doing something space related in Antarctica, probably a spaceport. You know, no one would see them coming and going from the planet. But we interviewed him, and he's like, by the way, congratulations on your conference. And he goes, looks like you caught some attention. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, my buddy over at the ONI, my friend at the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, asked me if I was going to it. He's like, so the Navy is watching you guys. And apparently there was some personnel there undercover that we found out later. That were just there to see, kind of what was going on. And we actually had to kick some people out that were feds, and we were right about it because they ended up doing a huge hit piece on the event, and we were right. We were right in our gut instinct, and we had to kick them out. I'm like, what is happening? Like, this is crazy. So we added some attention, and of course, right after this conference, I get approached by this guy. A colleague puts me in touch with this guy who claims he's a Navy whistleblower that works for some of these black programs. And he claimed that he was working with a team of 12 to 14 people that were clearing out the underground tunnel network of like all the reptilians and grays and like these ETs that had been residing there and like, trafficking humans and like clone programs and genetic experiments like at the Dulce base. And he was tasked with cleaning that up. And he had some amazing stories and even claimed to have been to the moon a few times and stuff like that. So what turned into a conversation, or what started as a conversation from me vetting him to interview him on a podcast, turned into a long drawn out grooming process to recruit me into another type of program. And we talked on the phone for about a year before I ever interviewed him one time because he was blowing my mind with even more information than what Larry had. He just knew way too many details, but what caught my attention was he knew a lot about me that he couldn't have and shouldn't have known, down to very specific health issues and things that I had. And he never really would tell me how he knew. He liked holding that over me. It was as if he had access to some sort of a file. If not, he was an excellent remote viewer or, something to that capacity. And, he taught me one of the main things that stuck out was I asked him how they got around, and he said, well, there's a natural portal system on the earth. The Sasquatch use it, Aboriginals use it, but the private sector, the people at the highest, deepest levels of the shadow government, they use it to get around the planet too. He said, yes, there's the maglev system on the ground. The train goes 3,000 to 5,000 miles per hour. but there's also a portal system, and it just depends on if it's specific to the mission, whether they'll use the train or the portal or whatever it is. And he would tell me how to look for it, the natural portals. He goes, the national parks, they make these areas national parks because these are the natural portal systems. And that's why people go missing. Sometimes they accidentally walk through these portals, or they're quite literally brought in through these portals intentionally. They're steered there, unbeknownst to them. They think they're visiting the park because they want to go, but they're really being steered there by some covert program that's interested in them, and they'll abduct them there. But he said you can tell by if you really meditate and look and like scan a field or anything in the national park or wherever there might be a natural portal. He said you'll see this glimmer, kind of like on a hot summer day when the heat is coming radiating off the pavement. He said it looks exactly like that, but there will be no heat there. It'll just be this weird radiating spot. And he goes, that's how you can identify where these portals are. But he was like, you can't just walk through them in most cases. Sometimes you can accidentally go through them, but sometimes it could be literally like a foot or two off the ground. And if you walk through it, you wouldn't go through it. But if you jump through it, you could. Like there's a very like specifics. And he was telling me like mirrors are portals. And basically the guy who invented the mirror, his name is Justice von Liebig, Liebig. He's like, that's not a real name. That's just telling you it's a big lie. And the mirror is alchemy. And you, if you know what you're doing, you can use any mirror as a portal. And they show that, they disclose that in the most recent Matrix movie. And he would just tell me all this amazing stuff. But then one day he asked me, would you be interested in joining the program that I'm in? And I was like, yeah, right. He goes, no, seriously, I, would you? And I said, what, are you trying to recruit me? He goes, what if I was? Would you be interested? I was like, well, I'm interested, but I'm not joining. I'm interested to know more, but I'm not joining because from what I know, they always try to sell it to you with a big, pretty bow on top. But then, once you sign that form, then you basically they own you. He's like, yeah, fair enough. I was like, well, what would the process look like anyway? And he was like, well, he goes, do you want to see? And I was like, sure. So he started basically asking me a bunch of questions. We got on a Zoom call. He wanted to do like a psych eval, and he got the Zener cards out, and he was asking me what's on the other side of the card. And he was like teaching me how to remote view and all this stuff, and like helping me like tap into these psychic abilities and basically seeing where I was at. And he asked me like a series of random questions, which I knew weren't random, but they were just like, it was part of the, I guess, the requirements to see where you would fit into the program. And then the very last thing he asked me was, what's the one thing you want more than anything in life? And without thinking, I said, love. And he goes, can you elaborate on that? I was like, love. I said, I want to find that one person out there that I know is looking for me. And I want love. That's what I want in life, out of life. And he's like, is that your final answer? I said, yeah, it's my final answer. What do you mean? He's like, well, you realize you can't have both. He goes, you can't have the love you're looking for and join the program. And I said, well, why not? You're married. And he's like, well, it's complicated. He goes, you won't have time for the relationship, especially at the beginning. And I was like, well, what about Journey to Truth? Like, I don't want to give up the podcast. And he goes, well, what if it could be arranged where you could still do the podcast and you would only be used, on very specific missions, and you would just be gone for short periods of time. And I was entertaining the whole thing. But he kept asking me about the love thing, and he said, "So love is the final answer. That's what you want more than anything." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, don't be surprised if you're tested in that area." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "You'll see." And we talked a little more. About a week later, this I met this girl online, and never met her in person. Just met her through Facebook, and somehow or another, we just like un it wasn't normal. We fell in love. Like we didn't know each other, but like we immediately remembered each other under the guise of the secret space program. Like we had this recall with them remembering each other from this like programs that we were kind of brought into. And we knew there was this soul connection, but we didn't understand what it was. And it didn't take long before we were just like talking every day, and like we just fell in love with each other and never even met each other. It wasn't organic. It almost seemed manipulated, which I found out later that it was. I didn't even connect the dots right away. I was so happy that I finally had met somebody and we were just hitting it off that I never really considered that it was like that we were steered into each other's lives, and that connection, that trauma bond from the programs was being exploited. But that's what they do. And basically, I think they wanted to just test me. And what happened was I got into this relationship and basically overnight became a targeted individual in the sense that you hear people about in the testimonials. I was gang stalked, tracked. People were breaking into my vehicle, into my house. They weren't stealing anything. My dog's collar was going missing. They were like effing with me. And I was experiencing more direct energy weapons. I was breaking out in hives randomly. And every time I would go walk at that park in Jefferson Barracks, like something would happen. Uh, I, and I had a Black Triangle TR-3B spacecraft fly over my house like 9 o'clock one night. As real as an airplane, it flew over completely silent. It had the three lights on the bottom, like you've seen, and it turned right above my house and it kind of banked off and just went into the night. And there was no shortage of people that felt like they were following me, constantly running into military people, and just weird things were happening. But I was also being attacked the worst I've ever been in psychically and astrally at night, like the sleep paralysis, but it was ramped up. But not only was it me, my girlfriend who had never experienced any of this stuff, she started she started experiencing being targeted and attacked. And she was like, "What the F it? Like, what the hell is going on? I've never been attacked like this in my life. What is it?" And then I would like kind of coach her through because unfortunately I had some experience, but we were both being targeted, and then the relationship was being targeted. It was very clear that somebody was tapping our phone calls. We could hear the clicks and the beeps, and in some cases, we would literally, like, if we were, like, I would be holding my phone on speakerphone, somebody was virtually screenshotting our text conversation and screenshotting our phones, and we would both see this. And like, you could see the picture was taken, but it would disappear from my phone. So they were definitely tapping the phone. And the most ironic part about all this is she finally disclosed to me that why she had such a connection with me. So the night before we met online, she had this crazy experience from what she would only call a secret space program, some sort of space program where um, she basically encountered a military man. She didn't know who he was, but that she had a very strong like connection to and was in love with. And when she woke up to something happened, literally woke up to her TV flying off of her dresser and like onto the bedroom floor and just shattering. Like that's how she woke up. But it was at the precipice of something that was happening in this quote unquote dream. And she was like beside herself. She didn't understand what was going on. And she was just asking her guides, God, the universe, whoever, like, show me a sign. Like, was that real? That felt so real. What just happened? I need a sign. And she's in Australia, mind you. This is all the way halfway across the world in Australia. And she basically asked for a sign. She drove to the gas station that morning, and a man in Air Force uniform, fully dressed, walked over to her while she was um, pumping up her car and gave her this keychain. It said U.S. Air Force, then, now, always. And he said, "Have a good day, ma'am." And he just walked away. She said, she finally told me after we had got to know each other, she told me that it was me, that it was me and that. And she's like, hey, I'll never forget your eyes. And, but it didn't make sense that it could have been me because obviously I'm here. Well, one of the things that this Navy whistleblower would tell me, he said that I had three clones. And he would tell me about doppelgangers a lot. He couldn't stress enough that everyone has doppelgangers, an exact replica of us living somewhere in another part of the world, and there's systems in place to make sure that we never run into each other, and no matter what we do. In very rare cases, people will basically see their doppelganger, and we even see evidence of this online. Recently, a guy got on a plane and sat next to somebody virtually identical to him, and they took a selfie together, but they had completely different backgrounds. He said doppelgangers are different than clones, and it was hard. It was real hard for him to explain, but he would always talk about that to me. And he even told me, like, because one time I woke up with a voice in my head that said, "Write this number down." Um, 92720. And I like immediately texted Aaron because that was the first thing. I grabbed my phone. It was so clear in my head. I said, write this number down, 92720. And I'm thinking it's a date. I'm thinking it's all these other things. And I can't figure it out. And I finally told this guy, I told him, I was like, that's funny. I had this weird thing and I told him about it. And he goes, that's your clone. That's one of your clone ID numbers. And I said, what do you mean? He said, and it's not 92720, it's 19720. You heard it wrong. I'm like, dude, what is happening? So, and that's when he told me, he's like, yeah, you have three clones, and one of them you've actually met in Sedona. I was like, how did you know I went to Sedona? And he just kind of laughed. And I said, I know for a fact I've never met myself. And he goes, well, a clone doesn't have to be an exact physical replica. They can put your consciousness in another body. And there was a girl at a conference and brown hair. You had a conversation with her, and you guys really connected. That was actually you, your consciousness in another body. I'm like, what? Like, okay, I'll just take your word for it. I have no idea. So anyway, she claimed, my girlfriend in Australia, that was me that approached her and gave her that keychain. Our relationship was targeted all the way into the point of me going to Australia and where the targeting got really bad. And what I understand was happening now was that they were trying to sabotage the relationship so I wouldn't want love anymore. And I would be so fed up with it that I would just call him back up and say, screw it, I want in the program, which almost happened because he would always dangle this activation code in front of me too. He said he had an activation code that would activate one of my alters, my alternate personalities that is already in operation in one of these programs. Apparently, I'm already involved in some capacity that I'm unaware of. At least that's what he told me. And he would always dangle this activation code in front of me, but he was like, don't. He goes, I'll only give it to you if you request it because you don't know what kind of can of worms you'll open if I speak this phrase to you. And they're called remember codes, and this is a very real thing they use for sleeper cell assassins and Manchurian candidate type of people. They create alternate personalities and they can trigger people in and out of their alters. So the alter can go commit the crime. They can be triggered back into their other personality and have no memory of committing the crime. That's kind of the idea behind that. The movie American Ultra paints that picture beautifully. That's exactly the plot of that movie. So after the intense targeting in the relationship, I I eventually broke up with her, and I'm skipping a lot here because I know I'm running out of time, and I have some more stuff to get to. But it's all in the book if you're interested. And once I broke up with her, that's then the targeting stopped. Like virtually everything stopped. Things got much better. And then once I got him out of my life, things got way better. But after we broke up, I called him and I said, "Give me the activation code. Like I want to see if it's real. Like I think you're bullshitting me." He's like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Hang on." And then he basically told me he said this phrase of series of numbers and letters that typically would never be written or said together, and that's done for security purposes, so someone isn't accidentally triggered into an altar. When he read it out loud, it took my breath away, and I didn't understand what happened, but something fundamentally changed within me. Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't break up with my girlfriend yet, but it was getting really bad between us. And we had a really bad argument. That's when I called him. I said, okay, give me the code. Screw it. I want to know if this is real. And he gave me the code. And as soon as he did, everything changed, including I instantly fell out of love with my girlfriend as if I was under a spell. Just didn't care about her anymore. But then I realized it was scarier than that. I couldn't feel my heart. I couldn't feel emotions. I was completely robotic and angry. I had aggression and anger that was just built up inside of me. I felt like I wanted to fight somebody, and I felt like if a fight came to my door, I would know how to fight, like as if I would know martial arts. And it was a very scary thing that I actually was so mad. At first, I was mad at him because I was scared because it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me anymore. But I had to be mad at myself ultimately. And because I signed right up for that, I walked right into it. And I finally had to realize the only way out of this is to understand that this is still a part of me that has been intentionally, my consciousness has been intentionally fragmented and split, but it's still a part of me. So I can learn to heal this aspect of myself. And I looked at it as an opportunity to heal that aspect of myself and basically overcome it and figure out how I can reintegrate that part of my mind into me here and now. And I did, and I was having success, and I was invited to Belize, where we were going to investigate some Mayan ruins. It was a whole random thing how I ended up there. And the resort we were on, there was this cat, this local cat, that took a liking to me, and it was like kept wanting to come in my room, and it was jumping on my lap, and it was just constantly around me. Well, one night I was sitting there, and it jumped up on my lap, and it just put its head into my heart, right into my chest, and it started purring so intensely. And it felt like it was dissolving or dismantling a wall that had been artificially put up around my heart. And I felt like I was free again. That cat literally helped me break free from that programming and feel into my heart again and start operating from my heart instead of this very neutral robotic place where you just don't have any emotion. It came back, and like I swear that cat was like an ET, Lyran ET that was sent in to help help me do that. And there is so much more to that story and the one with Larry that I wish I had time to tell, but there's some more stuff I want to get to. So he knew way too much about me, and I told you guys the grooming. Oh, so there was military abductions that would happen during this time that I would quite literally like remember waking up in the back of a black SUV. I was taken to a Boeing facility in Southern Illinois where I was being tested for some abilities, and it was this whole crazy memory I chronicle in the book. But I woke up in my bed like from that abduction, completely sideways, sweating, not like on top of my covers, everything, and I knew that I had been somewhere, and like it wasn't there immediately, but then it like all it took was a few minutes, and somehow the memory wipe didn't work, and I remembered the entire abduction, and I was quite literally taken out of my house, from at least from what I understand, the way it happened from my memory. I was taken out of my house, um, abducted, brought to this facility that was only 42 minutes from my house, a Boeing facility in Southern Illinois, brought into the basement of this facility, tested for some psychic abilities and a few other things, which is in the book, and then put back. And that wasn't the only time that happened while this guy was trying to recruit me into this program. It happened a few other times, and very crazy, vivid memories. And he was always there in those memories because he was the one that was involved in the abductions, and this whole thing was being puppet mastered in some capacity. And there was another like group that was also trying to give me an activation code, and it's a whole other story. It's a wild story. But um, so then another memory that I had from that time was also I had just randomly an entire memory of being at this. I didn't know what it was. I knew it was an Air Force base, and I knew it was like a recruitment attempt. So it was like I had memory of this whole life that I didn't even know, like it didn't fit into this reality. But it happened during this period in 2022 where these memories came flooding back. And I found myself on a trip to Colorado Springs and with a friend of mine. We were doing some grid work and stuff up there, and there was a lot of, we were being targeted as well, and that's a whole other story. But on the way out, I wanted to stop at Cheyenne Mountain and take a picture of the entrance that you see on the TV show Stargate SG-1, which I was told from this guy was a real program. And that show actually was like some of the scripts were actually mission reports from the actual Stargate program. And he said that in a few times in the show, they actually show the real Stargate and not just the like 3D animated or the prop, the set. He goes, sometimes they literally slip in a scene showing the real Stargate, and everyone's none the wiser, but they're showing you right in front of your face. So I wanted to go take a picture of the entrance. We were passing the Air Force Academy. I didn't even know about the Air Force Academy or anything about it. And my friend was like, you can go on tours there, actually. And I was like, you can? And I looked over and I recognized the place and I didn't know how. And I literally, without even thinking, it was almost like something took control of the car. And I went from the fast lane all the way across the highway, could have got us killed, and got off the exit. And she's like, whoa, what the hell was that? And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I know this place. I recognize this place. How? And it was so weird. We pulled up to this gate you're looking at right here. And there was a line of cars, and they were letting everybody through. We were the only car that got searched, by the way. They went through our car, and it was a whole ordeal. But we were the only one. Everyone else was getting right through. And while we were sitting there in line, I told her, I said, "You see the colors there on the in this gate here, the red, the gray, the yellow, the blue." I said, "That's how you know that this is an underground facility." I said, "Each one of those colors is a stripe that's on the floor in the underground facility, and each stripe lead to a different part of the base, and each one is a different represents a different security clearance." And if you have that color on your badge, then you have access down that stripe, but you never go down the hallway if you don't have access to that color. Anyway, she's like, "How do you know this?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just kind of like assuming, I guess, but I've heard other people talk about it." And she's like, "Yeah, but you had a lot of very specific details." And like, I don't know. It's like, I think I just remember this place. And we pulled through this gate and started driving, and I'm just like, more and more is coming back, and it's becoming so real that I have been there before. To the point where we came around this turn, and I saw the view of the mountains and the campus, and I just got hit with a tidal wave of memories and emotions. I pulled the car over and had a mental breakdown. Like, I started crying uncontrollably and just sobbing, and she didn't know what the hell was going on. She was like, "What are you doing? Are you okay?" I'm like, "I literally have been here. I just got like, I know this place. I've been here. I don't know how I know." I was just in tears about it. And I knew my way around the freaking place. And we pulled up, and I told her what took place in this building and that building. And I said, "Yeah, I was literally standing in a circle inside this building of recruiters, and they were basically explaining to me like what it was like, what it would be like to join the academy and all this stuff." And they one thing they kept saying to sell it was like, don't look at this as a recruitment. Look at it as an opportunity to make a difference." And anyway, I told her this whole story, and then I was like, "Yeah, and in that building over there, those are the dorms. I remember staying in those dorms." And specifically, I pointed to the window, like I knew my way around the site. And she was looking at me like I was crazy. And we walked into the one building where I remembered standing in that circle of recruiters and other cadets too. There was a couple other people, um, potential, recruits there, and in my memory. So we walked in, and nobody was there. It was kind of like a ghost town, and we walked around the building. I'm like, "Yeah, we were standing right here. That's where the guy said, now don't think of this as a recruitment. Think of it as an opportunity to make a difference." And then I was escorted down this hallway here, and they brought me into an office, and they made me watch this like recruitment film. It was this Air Force Academy film. They like kind of sold it to you as this glorious thing. And I just explained to her the whole memory. I was like, "Yeah, after this, they took me to the cafeteria. Then after that, they took me to my dorm. And then two men came to my door." And I told her the whole memory. And she was just looking at me like, "How, like, is this dude nuts, or does he really remember this?" We made a lap around the building. And when we came back to the front entrance, there was a circle of people standing exactly precisely where I told her that we were standing. There were a couple Air Force men in uniform and recruiters, and a couple young kids standing in that circle. And we both literally heard him say, "Now, I don't want you guys to look at this as a recruitment. I want you to look at this as an opportunity to make a difference." She looked at me with her jaw on the floor, and vice versa. And I was like, "I told you." And then it got so real for me. And she's like, "There's no way that you could have known that." Like that, at that moment, she was convinced, and I was convinced. And I was like, "I'm telling you, like I literally have been here before, but I don't know how. I know." And we walked around the whole thing, and we were definitely being followed. And some guy bumped into me twice on purpose. It's a whole story, which is also in the book. But I'm coming close to the end of my hour here, and I want to leave time for some questions. But this was another military abduction or something like that, where uh, I was taken to a place, and potentially even a parallel timeline, which is why I call my book Bleed Through Tales from Another Timeline, because I don't know how all of this can be happening simultaneous to my life here. There's just these out of place memories that only make sense if you entertain parallel realities, which is what quantum mechanics quite literally explains. So we have science for it. And I think quantum physics is going to become more and more accepted. And at the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, I think will be more widely entertained. And basically, there's many versions of us on many timelines living simultaneous. And I kind of break that down, how that works in my book, at least to my understanding. And then another site that I was able to find again was the Boeing facility that I was brought to in Illinois. I didn't know it was a Boeing facility in the middle of the night when I was taken, but I found out through the universe and through many synchronicities that it was a Boeing facility. I looked it up on Google, found the buildings because I drew them. The memory was so vivid, I literally drew the buildings when I woke up. And then I went and found them 42 miles from my house. And so on both occasions, I remember being abducted by the military. I was able to find the buildings and revisit them. And then after that, I recovered. I was in a recovery process and I started writing my book. And then this actually happened last year at ex-con, where I had this wild experience where I ate this gummy that my body responded to as a poison. And I was rushed to the emergency room where a whole crazy thing happened to me where I literally stopped breathing. My throat closed up. My dad had to save my life with an EpiPen, and the ambulance came to the hotel and brought me to the hospital where I experienced yet another military abduction from the hospital. And they brought me into the basement of the facility and interrogated me. There was Army personnel and men in white lab coats. There was a steel table, and they was basically had me on a polygraph machine, a poly exam, and they were asking me questions because I have some connections to Fort Leonard Wood, which isn't far from there. My grandfather was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood. And prior to this conference, I was having multiple memories come back from Fort Leonard Wood, another place that I remember being brought. And I told it was very confusing. I think they gave me sodium pentothal in the ambulance, which is a truth serum, and I know that from interviewing people. And I blacked out, and I woke up in the basement of this facility for briefly. Then I passed back out. I woke up again, and I was in a wheelchair up in the ER, and they were hooking this oxygen sensor to my finger. And when they hooked the oxygen sensor to my finger, the whole memory of being hooked up to the polygraph machine, because they put things on your finger, they put something on your finger just whenever they do the lie detector as well. And they put that oxygen sensor on my finger, the whole memory came back. And I was quite literally being interrogated, but I don't remember much of it. It was foggy, but I'm literally sitting there in the ER at the desk, and they're asking me questions about what happened at the hotel. Well, meantime, I have this like flood of memories. Like last thing I remember is getting them giving me sodium pentothal in the ambulance. And by the way, the guy that gave it to me, he didn't even look human. He looked synthetic. Like I looked into his eyes, and I swear it looked like there was cameras behind it. It looked like a robot. Even the way he was moving, it was weird. And then I told this story after the fact. I don't have time to tell it all, but I told this story after the fact. And a girl reached out who was a fan of our podcast. And she said, I worked at that Mercy Hospital for 15 years. And she said, there is an underground tunnel network there. And that's how they transfer the psych patients and homicidal patients. They're required to transfer those patients through the underground tunnel so they don't disturb anyone in the hospital. And because the room I ultimately ended up in at this hospital in Springfield was a room with armed police outside the room, three glass windows, and a camera in the center of the room, so they can like watch me. And apparently that's the homicidal ward. That's the psych ward. And that's where they put the homicidal patients. But so she reached out to me and she's like, I know you're not lying because that's exactly, if you ended up where you said you did in that room, then you would have been underground in the tunnels. And I'm like, to what end though? Like I didn't do anything, but I thought I was having an allergic reaction to a gummy that I took at the hotel. And next thing you know, I'm being like shot up with sodium pentothal and interrogated, and there's this whole other crazy series of events that happened at this hospital, including seeing two individuals who I believe were ETs. One was a Lyran, and one was a reptilian. There was Army personnel there at the hotel, and they never asked for my information. I never got a hospital bill for it. When I asked them if I could get a record of what they gave me in the ambulance, they said they didn't have that record, and I would have to like file for it and submit. And they didn't have access to it, and it was the whole thing was weird and anomalous, and way more, way more to that story as well. And I just, it's been a crazy journey, but um, that was in the process while I was writing my book, and that ended up in my book. It's called A Dance with Death, and that story is chronicled there. And this is my book, Bleed Through Tales from Another Timeline. You can find it on Amazon. It's not, I'm not really trying to sell my book, but I am because I think this can help a lot of people. I share a lot of stuff that the feedback so far has been overwhelming. And as far as thank you so much, like I've experienced things like this, but no one has quite explained it the way you have. So I'm not the only one who's experiencing things like this. And if you're interested, you can get this on Amazon. And then don't worry, I'm okay. I've been doing very well. I recently moved to Sedona, and I've been healing a lot, and things have gotten a lot brighter. And so far, I'm doing good, and I'm going to take the win. So I guess that I can just end it with that. Oh, here is the sneak peek of the cover for our documentary, Behind the Green Door: A Lifetime of Silence. It's going to be available on, hopefully on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, anywhere you can get it. Documentary. It's going to be a big time film, and we're working with a lot of big people. So stay tuned for that. And that is it.
All right. That was fantastic, Tyler. We do have a couple questions in chat. And
Okay.
this one is from Carl. Why do you think they let you talk? I think he's meaning today. Why do you think they let you talk about your experiences?
It seems based on what I told you, it feel like they didn't like me talking, and that's why a lot of that was happening. But um, it's not so much that they let me talk; it's just that I do it, and I think um, we can come to a place in our own lives where we're resonating at a higher frequency than them, and once we understand that we hold all the power, they can only, unless they wanted to just outright kill me. All they can do is scare me and try to threaten me into silence. And I don't think at this point in our timeline, with the way disclosure is going, that people are being killed like they used to be, which there is a track record of whistleblowers being killed.
Mhm.
At this point, I know that there is still some fuckery, for part of my language. There is still some stuff occasionally that happens that I just know in my heart that it's like them monitoring and checking in on me. But at the end of the day, I think that I'm safe. And I think a lot of people are safe because there's some major things happening on this planet that I think disclosure is on the horizon. And we're at a time in history where there's so many people talking about it now, they can't keep a lid on it.
And another question from Michelle, do you have any higher beings such as guides, angels, ETs, etc., that help you or guide you or that protect you or warn you in advance about things?
Yes, absolutely. I believe that. And the first time I've always known they've been there, but it was actually last year at the conference, Margie, after I got back from the hospital the morning before my talk, which I can't believe I made it back alive and gave the talk still. I woke up in my hotel room that morning, and I felt for the first time ever the tangible presence of an entire like team of guides and guardians. Like they were in the room, like you just could feel them and I could sense them and I could almost like hear them. I mean, I don't know. And I felt like they were just walking around me down the hall during my presentation. Like they made sure that I was safe for the rest of that event. And I've never in my life felt them more tangible than that. I mean, it was so obvious. It's hard to put into words, but they were there, and they definitely show up, and I can sense when they're around. But yeah, there's protection like that in place too. To go back to the last question, there are unseen forces that are helping us as well, and
Mhm.
I think that's part of the reason that I'm safe, and a lot of people are safe today.
And I've got a question from, I think it's Kelly. Any ideas when we will have disclosure?
I like to tell people that it's already happened, actually, and I know they don't want to hear that, but this is when my guides come in. I was thinking about it one morning, waking up, just one of the waking thoughts. I was like, everybody's like fighting for disclosure, especially on X and the UAP hearings and all this stuff in Congress. I'm like, but there's an entire history of whistleblower testimonies going back to the 60s even of people talking about all of this stuff. And if we don't write that off and take it seriously and we compile that, we have disclosure beyond a sense that we could ever wish for. It's all there. The information is there. The problem is it has been ridiculed and written off and most of the times forgotten about. And they want us to forget about it. They're trying to rewrite history, the history of ufology by, rebranding it from UFO to UAP. And then they don't talk about any of the historical cases that any researcher knows about. They just conveniently ignore that stuff. And they're trying to give us this new narrative. We can't rely on them. Like it's literally up to us and the disclosure is out there. Thank God to the phones and the internet and all these amazing devices where we have the world's information at our fingertips. If you know where to look, you can find it. And if you know where to find it, you can compile it and you can present that to people and show them, listen, this is the truth of the matter. And when I had that thought that, it's already happened, like I felt one of my guides so clearly, like give me like a pat on the shoulder, like, yes. And I got all these full body chills. And they're like, yes, that's true. Like the truth has already coming out through the whistleblowers, but people didn't take it seriously.
All right. Well, if anybody else has a question, go ahead and raise your hand or drop it in there in the chat. If not, we'll go ahead and let Tyler go and say thank you very much. That was extremely interesting and thought-provoking, and I'm looking forward to reading your book.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I will steer people to our website, journeytotruth.online. If they're interested in anything that we do, you can find it all there. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for the
Thanks,
opportunity.
Tyler, man. It was great to
Mhm.
see you again.
Yeah, you too.
All right, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Ella LeBain. She's got a presentation on evidence of the secret space program and the sun. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.